How to find remote DevOps jobs, open source and open source. On Twitter, I did a tweet and I asked you, what questions would you like to ask me? And I'm here to answer those questions. So I'm super excited. You know, I love questions. So thank you so much for getting involved. We had 201 likes and I don't know how many comments, but quite a few. So let's get started, and a big shout out to all of you. First on the list, I don't know if this was the first reply. I'm not sure how Twitter organizes these, if there's like kind of thumbs up, thumbs down sort of style. But Peter, thank you so much for your question. What motivates you, as in what motivates me? Well, all of you actually. I love it when you all engage with my content. It could be a comment on one of my posts, one of my tweets, one of my YouTube videos. And I love these questions. That's what motivates me. And just seeing other people succeed really makes me happy. So a big shout out to all of you, and a big shout out to Peter for that question. I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for. Let me know in the comments below. Then next we have Andrew. What is your favorite open source project? Andrew, that's a really hard question. I actually don't know if I could answer that on the second question already, and I'm kind of stuck. Well, today actually we were migrating Linktree, the Eddie Hub project, the open source alternative to Linktree, to Next.js. We've been doing that for a couple of months, and today we're really close. It's kind of like deployed to a beta environment. I'm just waiting for a few maintainers to check over the code, check over the features, make sure I haven't missed anything. I suppose Linktree is one of my favorite projects. It's doing really well. We've got over 1,000 forks, over 1,000 stars, and I really see some legs in that project. So I'm hoping to take it to the next level next time as well. So Linktree for the moment, I would say, but you know, I love all open source projects. Next question we have from Claudio. Claudio says, how would you convince a company, small, medium sized, to invest in open source? For example, letting employees contribute back to projects that they use on company time. And this is a challenge I've been fighting with for over a decade. Companies are happy to consume open source, to use open source. They don't pay any licensing, but they never want to give back. Not even GitHub sponsors. Okay, GitHub sponsors wasn't available 10 years ago, but it's available now, and they won't even donate kind of $15 a month to the maintainers that spend hours and hours on it. So this is a really hard, challenging one. But the way I encourage companies to see the benefit is you've got to, unfortunately, show them the benefit to the company. So I would say the benefit would be to the company is that their employees are more motivated, they are more challenged, they get to understand these open source projects better, projects that they're probably using on the company's projects, different libraries and frameworks. They'll get to understand it better. They'll get to network with the other maintainers and people in the community. So therefore, in the future, when they get stuck, not if they get stuck, when they get stuck, or they run into a very kind of serious and challenging bug that's specific to a certain setup, they can reach out to the community for help because they've been providing so much value over time. So it is so beneficial. I have seen companies where they have done this. They've allowed their 20% time, so their Friday, allowed their employees to contribute to open source projects. It hasn't had to be specific to the projects that they use in the company. It could be any open source project that they want. I've seen this go so well. It's great to see the employees kind of collaborate together on something different, something they're really passionate about, almost like a kind of a mini hackathon. So hopefully that helps, Claudio. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to discuss this further. This could actually make a really interesting Twitter space or live stream discussion. Dan, great question. So what does it take to become a DevRel, and how did I get into it? So what does it take? So for me, I really believe DevRel isn't about how many followers you got, how many open source contributions you got. I really believe it is about how people collaborate, and do they have empathy? Do they support each other? That's really what DevRel is about. Communication is such an important key factor in open source, in DevRel, well, in most things really. That's why I keep saying these core skills are super important and people should practice them. I don't think it takes anything special. If someone is a community person, is kind of, passionate about helping other people succeed, then they would make a great DevRel. If they're good at creating content, then I think that is a bonus. It really helps. It could be blog posts, it could be YouTube videos, it could be live streams, it could be maintaining open source projects. The more of those, the better. But I think those can be learned over time if the person has the right attitude. And how did I get into DevRel? Well, from open source, really, kind of how I just described. It's kind of my story in a way. I got into open source. There were no GitHub, no Git, no pull requests back then when I started, but I slowly got into it. Yes, the first kind of pull request, well, back then it was just contribution, was fixing a typo, Actually, so was my second, third, and probably 10th contribution was also fixing typos. But then I worked on it and built from that, got to meet people in the community, and they helped me level up to do more challenging contributions because they could see that I was sticking around for a while, I wasn't jumping around between projects. So as I got into open source, and then I started kind of, sharing my adventures on Twitter, and then a few years later onto YouTube and blog posts. And then that's how I got into DevRel, really. So I really believe anyone can do it. And I want more and more people to get into DevRel. They don't have to do DevRel as a full-time job. They could do it as part of their job. They could do it on the side. It's just such a big investment in their career, in their learning. So later on, if they decide to go into DevRel full-time, they could. But again, they don't have to. Pandit asks a really good question. How open source helps us in our career? Well, I can put my entire career, like kind of success, all down to open source. It has helped me become a better coder. It's helped me grow my network. It has helped me understand different projects, how different projects manage their projects. I might not do it that way, but at least I'm aware of another way that a project does it, which is super interesting because it's the unknown unknowns that are kind of the scary things. So whereas if I see that project, it does it that way, I might not like it, I might not agree with it, but I have an understanding and appreciation for it, and actually reinforces the way I might do it. Or I might change and do it their way, but I've got that choice. Helps us communicate better. If we're a contributor, a maintainer, a manager, whatever it is, tester, developer, designer, we need to communicate. And so it's really, really important for people to do that. And open source is such a great way to do that. It's kind of overlaps massively with creating content and also learning in public. I really see them all kind of under one umbrella. It can only help our career. And those people stand out massively. Like one of the interview tests that I do for when I'm interviewing for my clients, don't tell anyone this will be our secret, is I like to talk about a feature or a bug on their project or on that client's project, whatever it is, doesn't really matter. But I can straight away see if someone contributes to open source or not without even checking their GitHub profile. Because the way they write that issue that we just discussed is so different from someone who contributes to open source, because they will give it context to people that weren't there in the conversation, because they know that open source is asynchronous and other people from different time zones, other people who speak different languages will drop in and see that issue or pull request or comment at a later date. So they give it context, which is a really important skill to have. So I highly recommend people getting into open source. I cannot recommend that enough. That's the first thing they should do. Before they even write hello world, they should get into open source. Why? Because open source is not about code. It is really important to do so many other things in addition to code. Code's actually only a small part of open source. And Hacktoberfest this year, 2022, proved that because they included non-code contributions. Awesome, Hacktoberfest. Patrick asks, do you like being a digital nomad? Do you have any tips for still being productive while traveling? This is another really good question. I love these questions, everyone. So yes, I do like being a digital nomad. It has major benefits. It has some challenges, let's say. I'll get to those in a minute. I want to keep this, authentic. I don't want to just, what's the expression? Put it through rose-tinted glasses and go, oh, it's all amazing. It's hard work. Being a digital nomad is amazing. I love it. I find it really creative. Being able to work from different locations, meet different people. I find it really creative and really refreshing. Like I want to focus more because I want to kind of go then have fun as well and do something different. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I absolutely love it. Being productive, put things in your calendar. I block times for live streaming, for calls, for coding, for creating content, for whatever it is. I block time in my calendar for these to make sure they don't get missed. But now I also have a team that really helps me keep on track. Otherwise, sometimes you go down that rabbit hole and you get into some coding and it can be like a week goes past and you've created no content. Or on the other side, you create some content, it does really well, and you create more content and you create more and more and more, and then you forget about the coding and the other stuff that you need to do in the client work. So it's really important to have a team to help balance that. Everyone's obviously different. Some people are really good at keeping balance. I'm not. When something starts doing well or I find it really fun, I really kind of triple down on that. I need to make sure that I keep balanced. So some of the kind of challenges I say with being a digital nomad is I hate flying. So that is definitely a challenge for me. I really don't like flying. I love getting to the destination, but I just hate the journey time to get to the destination. The other thing is it can be tiring. Traveling is really exhausting, maybe because I don't enjoy it, but it's really hard. And packing up all my studio gear is really, really hard. I have to kind of plug things in, make sure I wrap it so it doesn't break. If something does break, I try and replace it. And it's sometimes hard to replace things when they're broken in certain countries. And it's expensive to travel with my gear. And that's one thing I kind of grudge, I suppose. I want to try and reduce my gear further. I think the first time I went to Portugal, we drove, and that was our first kind of long digital nomad trip. And I was able to take like 300 kilos. You just throw it in the back of the car, it's fine, roof box, no problem at all. But when you're flying, every flight you take, they charge you excess luggage, which is really, really expensive. So we managed to reduce it down to 75 kilos, which is still quite a lot, because we would take like a short haul flight in Southeast Asia. It would cost like $50, but then excess luggage was like $250. So it kind of seemed a bit of a waste of money. So I want to try and reduce it further. But again, all this equipment, the cameras, the lenses, the batteries, the lights, they all add up. The microphone alone kind of weighs quite a bit. So yes, if you can travel light, that is definitely a double thumbs up. Rakesh, thanks for this question. What do you think of sending cold emails? Ever given it a shot? I haven't, no, because of the open source work I've been doing for so many years and the content creation. Luckily, I have clients that come to us, so we haven't had to do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. And I think if we didn't have client work, we would do that. I would just try and write really personalized emails. So therefore, the other person it resonates with them more, because, yes, I don't send them, but I do get a lot of cold emails. And most of the time I read the first 5 words or the first 1 sentence and delete it, unless it really resonates with me. Make sure you've kind of done your research on that client or potential client, and see if you can say something that resonates. I've had some cold emails of people saying, your website's terrible, I can do so much better. I'm thinking, well, that's not really kind of constructive. They can say it to anybody without even looking at the website. So whatever you're kind of cold emailing on, I'd recommend making it really specific to them. This is more work for you, but it's better to send out 10 cold emails and kind of get 2 responses, and send out 1,000 cold emails and get no responses. So that's just my thoughts on that. Let me know how it goes. AU asks, when we learn to code through open source, or when we want to contribute to an open source project, how to understand and not get overwhelmed by the source code. So many open source projects are quite big, and even if they're not big, when you're new to it, it can look big and scary, but we don't need to understand the source code or all of it to do our contributions. We only need to understand part of the source code. It could be a module, it could be just a component, for example, and those are the changes that we're going to make. A great way to get involved and get familiar with an open source project is to go through their tutorials, their quick start guides, and see if there's any steps missing, see if they need an extra screenshot adding, follow it through, see if it makes sense to you. There might be some typos you can fix. Check out their automated testing. Are there any tests that are missing? Could you improve the code coverage? Are there tests that are maybe incomplete that you could add more criteria to? It's a great way to get familiar with the project. Then you can start adding more and more value over time. So I think we need to understand that we can't do a massive contribution on day one. I mean, some people can, but the majority of the time we can't. It's about adding little value, but often. And I always use this example. It's like brushing our teeth or going to the gym, right? We don't try and go to the gym and lift like 500 kilos on day one, or we don't brush our teeth for 24 hours and then don't brush it for the next 6 months. We just need to do it little and often. And I think that's really, really important. And the benefit to the project and the benefit to yourself as a contributor is super, super important. As a maintainer myself, I actually get scared when I get massive pull requests. I want small pull requests, 1-line pull requests. That 1 line, if it adds value, I'll accept it. I love it. I'll thank you. And I'd rather get multiples of those because it's so much easier to review and we can merge it so much sooner. Great question from Chai. Do events like Hacktoberfest and Hack Squad actually bring good, interesting people into open source, or do people jump on for the swags? Is there a way to let more people know about open source but not luring them with swags? This is another great question. It's something I've thought of every year. Like, is there something more we can do? Is swags needed? I think swags is very kind of intertwined with tech. Good or bad, I'm not sure. It's not very sustainable, so maybe we can do something else. I'm actually doing a different prize giveaway for my 100K on Twitter, so I'm not going to announce it now. I don't know when this video comes out, and I don't know when I hit 100K to announce it all, but actually, you know what? We're all friends here. Let's announce it. So for a 100K giveaway on Twitter, I'm actually not giving away swag. I toyed with the idea. Like, I thought about it. What swag I could give away? Could it be t-shirts, stickers, like electronics? But I thought, wait, you know what? How can we give away more value and not have to post stuff around around the world that people might throw in a cupboard or take a picture and that's it. So we're actually doing mentoring sessions. So I've reached out to amazing people on Twitter that you all know and asked if they would do mentoring sessions, 30-minute slots with the winners from the competition. So that's what I'm trying to do. And for Hacktoberfest, obviously they couldn't do something like that because there would just be too many people and it wouldn't be scalable. I think to get people into open source, there needs to be, well, there's the obvious thing, right? They can accelerate their career. They can learn so much. The benefit is all for them, but sometimes they also need that swag incentive. Hopefully that will change in the future. Yes, you're right. It does attract certain people who just want that swag. But to be honest, if they just come for the swag, all they're going to get is swag. They're not going to get the high paying job. They're not going to get the clients coming to them. They're not going to get all the other benefits. So I hope that people who come to Hacktoberfest for swag still stick around after October. I think that's really important. If they don't, well, it's their loss and, I wish them all the best. But you're right, it does attract some spammy pull requests, but this year has been a lot better. I did just publish a video. It's Halloween today, so I did publish a Halloween video on scary spammy pull requests, and there were very, very few. So this year, everyone's done great. So well done, everybody. China asks how to edit my README file. China, your README file looks great. I think people's README files, be it on their GitHub profile, on their repo profile, it's something that we can't get done in one go. It's something we need to kind of iterate on over and over, a bit like contributing to open source. It's something that we need to do little and often. And so like looking at other projects also is a great way to learn. Like if you see another README, you can take ideas and tips from it and then you can just kind of implement them in yours. And I think that's really important. One thing that I saw in a repo was they explained why they named their project in a certain way. I thought that was a really nice touch, made it really personal. So if you can make it personal but make it informative, but not too long, it's having that balance between information and being concise at the same time. A great way to test this is when someone's new to your project and they say, hey, can you help me on your project? What's it about? Say, whoa, why don't you have a look at my README and let me know what you think? And if you can't understand the project, there is nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with my project, but together we can improve it. That person who's new to your project can add so much value by giving their fresh perspective. So that's what I would say, China. I hope that helps. Let me know in the comments below. I look forward to hearing your feedback. Tamal asked a really good question. So there are open source programs like GSOC, MLH, LFX. I don't know about LFX. I have to look that up. There's so many, Outreachy and so forth. If someone's not able to make it there, does that mean they cannot scale up their journey in open source? Not at all. Open source is such a huge, I don't know, it's just a massive ecosystem. And I think, these programs are really good. I've never done them myself, but I've heard lots of good things about them. But they're a program, right? They're going to be going down a bit like kind of college or university or whatever it is. They've got a curriculum they're going to go through. But some people might not conform to that curriculum. They're going to probably be focusing on code contributions where people can help with project management. They can help with so many other areas, community, collaboration. It's so important. So what I would say is, no, if they don't take those programs or they don't succeed at those programs, it doesn't mean they're not going to succeed at open source. They definitely can. They're just, not using that same kind of cookie cutter or mold that these programs are using. So don't give up, keep going. There is a place for everyone in tech. That's why tech is so amazing, because there is a place for everyone. And if someone's different, that's awesome. Their perspective is just going to make it even better for the next person. Mikhail, thanks for the question. When a solution is submitted to a repo, why is it called a pull request and not a push request or merge request? As you're giving and not taking, this is super confusing. It is super confusing. This took me a long time as well. You're right. You're kind of requesting the other person to pull it into their project. So that's why it's a pull request. Yes, from our perspective as a contributor, it would be a push request. But from the maintainer's perspective, they're going to go to the pull request tab and they're going to have a look at what they're going to accept and pull in. So I think that's why it's called like that. Yes, it is confusing for everybody, not just you. I think literally everybody gets confused with this. But now it's so kind of ingrained with GitHub and open source. I don't think it's something they're ever going to rename, but it does happen to us all. So hopefully We can use it as a kind of a talking point. It's a great way to chat with new people in tech. I know you're not new, you've been supporting me for a long time and I really appreciate that. But maybe with other people who ask that question, it's maybe a nice question to ask. We can maybe turn it into a positive. I'm not sure. Let me know what you think. Kato asks, as a DevRel, how does your weekly schedule look like? My weekly schedule is all over the place. I need to try and, get it more focused and better, but I'm doing a lot of things. So every day I'm trying to catch up with Twitter notifications. I'm trying to catch up with GitHub notifications. I'm trying to contribute to our open source projects as well. I'm trying to be a maintainer on some of the projects. We have some amazing maintainers on the GitHub project, but some projects or some features, they're more for me to review because it's an area that, say, I'm more experienced in, for example. So there's that. There's client work that I need to do. So I need to draft sponsored tweets or script sponsored YouTube videos for clients to approve and then record them. Yes, I have Sarah, who helps me with a lot of this management and does the accounts and the contracts, all that. And I have Alona, who does amazing editing on all my YouTube videos, including this one. So thank you so much, Alona. I do have a lot of help. So when people say, Eddie, how do you create so much content? It's not just me. There is 3 of us in the team. So I've got that. And then at the same time, I still want to live stream. I still want to do coding on open source projects. Well, did I mention that already? There's just so many things that I want to do, and it is hard. But I do like the variety, but then sometimes I do want to sit down for more than a few hours, maybe a few days and do something, which is what I've done in the last few days. Actually, I sat down on the Link-Free project and moved the Next.js branch almost ready to be deployed. Hopefully we can deploy it tonight or tomorrow. I'm super excited about that. Sometimes I need those few days focus, and I still need time to rest as well. I'm really bad at this, but being a digital nomad does help me take some breaks throughout the day and do something very, very different and switch off. But yeah, I need to improve on all of that. That reminds me to go to the gym after recording this video as well. Shashank asks, how did I get into open source and how can one land their dream job through open source? Well, I kind of mentioned how I got into open source earlier on in this video, so I'm not going to do that again. But how can you get your dream job for open source, which is what I did? Well, by learning in public and putting it out there on open source, you're kind of putting yourself out there, literally just as I said, and people can discover you. If you can do also some tweets and maybe blog posts or YouTube videos, again, it gets that it casts that net wider for more people to discover you. But you need the GitHub, you need the open source to back it up. There are lots of people, unfortunately, that talk about, there's this great code on Twitter and this great code on YouTube and great tutorials and great videos and all the rest, but they can't back it up with actual code on GitHub. So I think it's really important to do that because hiring managers and recruiters are getting more aware that having a presence on content creation socials makes you stand out, but having it on GitHub is really important because you kind of back it up. People can see how you communicate with other people. They can see actually how your changes to the code base. I didn't say code. It could be tests. It could be documentation. How you do those, how you prepare those, how you do your branching, how do you do your commit messages, your naming conventions. Are you consistent? Can you collaborate with other people? So there's so much more to it. So open source allows us to get these dream jobs in tech because people can kind of see how we work day to day. And it's important to be consistent over time. Consistency is so key here. No one wants to see a burst of something for an entire weekend, like 100 commits or 100 collaborations and nothing for 6 months. It's little and often that's going to make us stand out. So that is super, super important. So yeah, I highly recommend doing that and think of it as a small bite sizes collaborations. That's the important part. And it's not just about submitting pull requests. What about reviewing someone else's pull requests? That's even more important. Commenting on someone's issue. Did they create a really good issue? Have they raised a bug? Can you confirm it's a bug? Can you confirm that it's not a bug on your operating system or your version of whatever platform you're using and so forth? So I think that's why, open source is so important because it covers so many aspects. And if you keep doing it consistently, companies are going to reach out to you. And if you want to, be tactical about this, you could also get involved and contribute to a company's open source project that you want to work for. If you want to work for a company, go find their open source projects and contribute to those. So when they're hiring for people, who are they going to ask first? The people who are contributing to their open source projects. Jane, another great question, how to get a remote job. I would say contribute to open source. I've just explained why a moment ago. If you want to try to accelerate that faster, maybe do some client work on the side or go freelancing, you can look at platforms like Upwork, for example, and then later on work on your personal brand to hopefully have clients come directly to you. I think that works really, really well. But yes, I've got lots of videos on this on my YouTube channel as well that go into much more detail. I actually have a playlist that talks about how to kind of get a remote job via open source. So go have a look at that. I'll link it down below. Linux Gamer, how to find motivation to what I do. Because of all of you, like all of your support is just super amazing. I love geeking out with you on Discord, pairing calls, live streams. It's just so much fun. So I really appreciate it. I am motivated because of all of you and my team as well. My team is amazing. It's always great to geek out with them. It's just, yeah, I love what I do and I couldn't do it without all of you supporting me. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. According to the scroll bar, we're kind of halfway. I don't know how long the video's been going for, but let's keep going. So many amazing questions. I'm absolutely loving this. Someone asked, learning JavaScript and Git, is it enough to land a job in tech? Absolutely. I think it's really important. JavaScript by itself, without HTML, CSS, you're probably going to be focusing more on the back-end technologies, which is fine. So on the node technologies, and that's great. And Git, so you can get involved in the project and pull down your team's changes and push your change or commit your changes and push them all the rest. So yes, that is enough. Get involved in open source as well. That will help you stand out from the crowd. Suvik asks, why did you choose open source? Because why not? There's nothing else to choose. Open source is about community, as I've always said, so I love that. So that's like a given. Like I couldn't imagine not choosing open source. And what's your future plan with Eddie Hub's inclusive open source community? Wow, I love this question. This is a hard question. I have so many plans for Eddie Hub, like so many big plans. Sarah and me are writing a list of all the things we want to do. However, it obviously depends on kind of timing, client work, so many things. I don't know if I want to release any secrets yet. Maybe I can share some teasers. So we did launch the ambassadors program 6 months ago, which has been a huge success and it's been so much fun geeking out with the ambassadors every day. So we're going to be releasing that again soon, the next kind of cohort. So I hope you're all ready. I can't wait to see the amazing applications, and the hardest thing is selecting kind of 4 to 6 ambassadors from the amazing, I think 200 applications we had last time. And this time maybe even more as the Eddie Hub community has grown so much. Other things we've got planned, well, we're going to go to some more events to meet more of you in person. That's always super fun. So I can't wait to do that. We've got more courses coming out for Eddie Hub. So I can't wait to get more of you into open source. So we're working on a course at the moment. I kind of put it on halt because Hacktoberfest was super busy for us, but hopefully going to start picking that up from next week. Yes. So got getting into open source courses. I've got even more course ideas that I've written down the title, but I haven't got into those courses yet. I can't wait. Maintainers course. Again, I'm super excited. I'm halfway through that now as well. So super excited to do that. What ideas do you have for Eddie Hub? What would you like to see? Let me know in the comments below. Thinking about it now, as you asked the question, I'm thinking potentially maybe we could have a bit like those other open source programs, maybe a mentoring side, like I can get other people from the community to come and help with that. So I'd love to hear your ideas actually. Maybe start a GitHub discussion, get a green square, and let's hear what other people think in the community. But let me know your initial thoughts below so I can see them in this video, and it also supports as well. Shashank asks a second question. Thank you so much for the second question. I love that. I love questions. How can one become a DevRel? Well, I've actually got a playlist on my YouTube channel called Developer Stories, and there's a few videos in there. One's coming to mind in particular, Confidence. He got a DevRel job as a student because he just made a video on an open source project, and the company loved it so much that they offered him a job. He said, hey, I'm a student. They said, well, no worries, work as much as you can. And then after you finish studying, there's a job waiting for you. And I think that was really, really awesome. So it's open source, it's content creation, just put it out there, start doing it, and then the companies they're gonna notice you. I think that's really important to put yourself out there. And it can be scary, but the only way you can get better is by practicing and by doing it. And you're gonna meet so many other people. So that's how I'd recommend getting into DevRel personally. Purva, how you doing? Thank you so much for your amazing comments on Twitter and LinkedIn today as well, in addition to this one. This has been great. So how to become an ambassador of Eddie Hub on high demand? This question you have to answer. Yes, we had a lot of applications. We'll be opening applications in the next few weeks. So I'm super, super excited. The best way to become an ambassador on Eddie Hub is be supported, be involved in Eddie Hub. So it doesn't mean you have to contribute to all our projects or anything like that, but get involved in the conversation, add value to the conversation, help other people. That's really important. That's what we want to kind of foster and grow. So yeah, you're doing great. Just keep doing it. Do it more if you can. Yeah, I look forward to seeing your application. Armpit asks, I'm doing web dev right now. I want to start another thing side by side. What should I choose, DSA or DevOps? It depends where you want to go, but I would say from a practical job real life perspective, do DevOps. Definitely. DSA is very theoretical unless you want to get into kind of, low level database, like kind of, optimizations, then you probably don't need all the DSA stuff. So I would reckon DevOps for my opinion, but do your research and see what you think. Best path to DevRel. I think we should do a Twitter space on this. Kartiki also asked this question. I think it's super interesting that this is such an important and high demand question. I think I've answered this already, Kartiki, but thank you so much for asking the question, because now you're the third or fourth, I haven't kept count, person who has asked this question. It shows me we need to get all the DevRels in the community together and maybe do a Twitter space or live stream or something like that on there. So thank you so much. Harris asks, I recently started contributing to open source, contributed to 3 projects so far. I want to contribute to big projects. Any advice for me? I would say don't try and think I must contribute to big projects. Just contribute to projects that feel good to you, as in they're using the technology that you want to use, or there's a friend's project, or it's a community's project. You'll find more projects as you contribute more and more to open source, and it will become easier for you. So I wouldn't try and think I must contribute to React or Kubernetes. They're actually really hard projects to contribute to because they're moving very fast and they're very strict and rigid, and the maintainers are getting so many notifications, you're almost kind of a number. I've tried to contribute to Kubernetes multiple times, and every time they're like, oh, we don't want this feature just yet, or we don't want this, or we'll do this next month it was, because we're rewriting this area, and then next month I'd go back and they're like, actually we're also rewriting this area. It's quite hard. Those projects move really fast because they have a dedicated team iterating on the code base all the time, and there's so many contributors as well. So it is moving really, really fast. Yeah, you don't have to. It doesn't look any more impressive to say I've contributed to Kubernetes or React or something like that. And a lot of the time when people say this, they've kind of done one contribution and it's like, fixing a typo or whatever it is. I love those contributions. I'm not trying to belittle them at all, but I'm just saying they're just trying to do the smallest contribution to get the biggest name on their resume and their GitHub profile. I would rather have someone consistently contribute to a small project that I've never heard of, but they added a lot of value and collaborated with a lot of people. I find that so much more valuable to that person's journey. So that's what I'd recommend. And how to get a remote job? Well, contribute to open source. Mod asks, how can I become a DevRel? This is a very popular question, so hopefully I pronounced your name right, Mod. Great question. It definitely shows that we need a Twitter space on this. What does DevRel do? Well, DevRel is quite a vague title, so in different companies it means different things. But the majority of the time it's about communicating, collaborating between the dev community and the product itself. So trying to help developers onboard onto the product. It could be creating content, holding live streams, so many different things. Usually there's so much to do that a team of people would do different areas. They'll work to their strengths, maybe go to conferences, give talks. There's just so many things in that area, which is why DevRel is so fun. How to find remote DevOps jobs? Open source. Open source and open source. How to write a good CFP talk application? Only with practice. CFP applications are kind of easy, but are really hard at the same time. Because to submit one is quite straightforward. You need a title and an abstract. But to get accepted is another story, because there's so many people submitting things that you need to stand out and you need to back it up. That's another thing that you need to do. I think it's important maybe to also try and record a YouTube video of you giving a talk, or if you've given a talk, record it, because a lot of the time when you're submitting a CFP, they ask for a link to a previous talk that you've done, not necessarily on the same subject, but they want to see how you present. But just practice with the CFPs. Get your friends to also have a look. Maybe we can have a section on the GitHub support repo where people can submit their kind of CFPs and people could give feedback. That's something to discuss. So thank you so much for that idea. Risto asks, what's the most trending type of open source project? What is your opinion? I don't really look at the trending tab on GitHub. I know people go crazy, oh, this project's trending. Well, just because all these people like that food or like that car doesn't mean I'm going to like it. So I don't really look into trending. I look into projects that add value to me. And those are the projects that I'm super interested in, and make sure that they're a friendly project. Because some projects might be great technically, but they're not very friendly. So I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer that question. So sorry about that, but that's just my 2 cents and thoughts on it. Ariane asks, how to get people to contribute to open source project. So I'm kind of guessing that you mean how can you get them to contribute to your open source project? Well, you could share tips on Twitter and you could say, I learned this tip by working on my open source project. So you're kind of not kind of being salesy about your open source project, but you're encouraging people to go have a look if they enjoyed that technology and tip that you just shared. Don't go spam it in loads of places, people's DMs, Discords. It doesn't work. People don't go look at that. People need to be given value first before they go have a look. So that's what I would recommend. You could also occasionally share some features about your project, but it's more about sharing the technical parts of your project. Like, did you learn something recently? Did you achieve something with two technologies together? Share that, and then people will go have a look at your project. So that's what I would recommend. Michaela asks, how did you become a digital nomad? Well, we used to travel a lot, but just for 2 weeks, kind of like holiday time, like everybody else. Then the pandemic hit and we were stuck at home, and we thought, well, if we're going to be stuck at home, it'd be nice to be stuck maybe in a tropical country. And we thought we'd do this when we retire, but we thought, why are we waiting until we retire? So we just kind of thought, okay, well, let's see how we can organize our work, organize our life so we can become digital nomads and travel the world and work in beautiful places. It is just so creative to be sitting kind of on the beach with a coconut, with your laptop, doing some work and just taking a break, going for a swim, doing some paddle boarding, and then coming back after feeling refreshed to do some more work as well. So it's not about not doing work. It's not about working all the time. It's about finding that balance and just being so creative and energized after doing something is just amazing. It's just the most amazing feeling. And how do I pick where we travel? We usually pick kind of countries that are hot to escape the kind of the UK or Europe winter. And we also pick countries that are safe because we travel with a lot of equipment. So there are some countries that are beautiful, but you wouldn't really kind of go with all of this equipment. So unfortunately, we don't go to those countries at the moment. We're probably going to those countries for a holiday, but Southeast Asia, we love the food there. We love the people. We love the weather, and it's really safe. That's what we do most of the time at the moment. Of course, things can change. So if anyone wants to come and visit us in Southeast Asia, let us know. I'd love to see you there and geek out. Of course, geek out. Need a photo with all of us and my laptop. Rohit asks how to find a remote job as a refresher. Check out my video on my YouTube channel with Confidence and Rishab. As a student, Confidence got a job with Rishab in their company as a DevRel, and it's such a great story. Go watch that. TLDR, so the short version, before you go watch that video is start creating content, start putting yourself out there, learn in public on GitHub, on Twitter and so forth, and anything else that you can do. Don't think about creating content, think about documenting your journey. And by putting yourself out there, you're really going to stand out, and that's the way to do it. But Confidence describes his journey and his story really well, so go have a look at that video. I'll try and link it down below. Rin Shin asks, how to get funded for an open source project? Oh, that's a really good question. It's probably something I can't answer because I have GitHub sponsors. I have about $100 coming in per month from, I think, like 20 people on GitHub sponsors, but I've never actually got funding for an open source project. There are lots of open source projects that have done that, so it's definitely possible, and more open source projects are getting that, but it's not an avenue, it's not a route I've gone down yet, so I'm not sure I can answer that, but it sounds like an interesting discussion, so if you find any information on that, let us know. Plasmid asks, when creating an open source project, what is the best way to attract maintainers and contributors? Well, I think the maintainers part is easier, but then you also need the contributors part first. So let me start with kind of the step 2 and I'll come back to step 1. So I think once you've got contributors that are there consistently and they're doing it in your style, right? They're being friendly, they're kind of talking with your tone, they've got empathy for the other contributors. Once they're kind of reviewing other people's pull requests and giving comments and feedback. They're not maintainers yet, so they can't merge it, but they could still review pull requests. That's what we encourage in EdiHub because it's a great way for people to learn, but it's also a great way to promote those contributors to become maintainers because they're doing it already. They just haven't got access to that merge button. So you can give them access and they can do that. That's how I would say get maintainers. And for contributors, I think sharing tips on Twitter is a really good way. And then also having a reply in the tweet to the GitHub repo. Doing live streams, I think live streams is a great way. Work on the open source project, do a live stream, and then people can get involved on the live stream. And that's a great way to get contributors. I think if people try and do that kind of, office hours, is a really, really good way for people to get involved in the project, to feel safe and to ask questions. So yeah, let us know how that goes. It sounds super, super interesting. Sadiku asks, as a newbie, how to kind of be motivated to contribute to open source? I would say join a community. That's what keeps me motivated, and that's what will keep you motivated. By being part of a community, you can really help each other. Right? We all have our high days, our low days. By being part of a community, it's a great way to, when you're having a great day, you can motivate someone else who's having not such a great day. And when you're not having such a great day, they'll motivate you. It's really, really important to be part of a community. I can't recommend it enough. But you'll get more out of the community the more you give to the community. So don't think about take. Think about give. And naturally, you're just going to get more and more out of it. Get involved in the conversation. Sometimes just listening and just being supportive is enough to help someone. And that's what will motivate you. I cannot recommend that enough. That has been one of the best decisions I've ever done, to be involved in the community and to create a safe place, Eddie Hub, for all you awesome people to collaborate together. Amlendra asks, Eddie Jobs. Well, funny enough, we are actually starting to create a job section on the Eddie Hub community, on the Eddie Hub website, because we want to collaborate with some of our clients who are great clients. They've got open source projects and they've got jobs that they want to hire people from the community. So coming soon will be that space. I just need to find time to kind of finalize it all. But yeah, that could be quite interesting. So there will be some criteria. They must be remote and it must be open source. That's how our job board will be different to everywhere else. So great question. Little teaser for Eddie Hub there. Someone did ask earlier on, what future ideas do we have for Eddie Hub? And I forgot to mention that one. So thank you so much for reminding me. Nathan, this is a really good question. If you had to start all over again, what would you focus on to help devs the most? I actually created a video on this, Nathan, on what I would do if I was starting all over again about kind of 6 months ago, a year ago. And it did quite well because I would definitely do things a little bit differently at the beginning so I could accelerate faster, but I would end up where I am now. So yeah, that was super interesting to make that video. But for people who haven't seen that video, I highly recommend you go and watch it. But because I'll go in more details there. But for here, I think people should get into open source first. Like even before they write their first hello world, get involved in open source, because then you've got the support there. And join a community, of course, join Eddie Hub, but join another community as well. And don't join like 100 communities, join like 10, and then you want to end up probably in 2. And the reason why I say join 10 is because, you know, you can be a fly on the wall, see how, if which communities are friendly, which one works for you, and then leave those ones and just stick in 2 and get involved and be active in those 2 communities. I think that's really, really important. And get involved in open source. And then you can worry about learning different coding languages and accelerating kind of your tech side. But it's really important to work on your communication, I think, first, and have a good support group who can help you when you get stuck, because it's not if you get stuck, it's when you get stuck. Sparsh asks, hopefully I pronounced your name okay, how can we show that we've contributed to open source on our resume? This is a really great question. I have done some videos and live streams on this, but I recommend that you add it. So you've got your experience section, you've got education section right at the top. Add what projects you've contributed to, and probably add a link, not to the project, to your pull request or to your issue, to your GitHub discussion, anything that makes you stand out. And maybe have a variety. Maybe if you've got 5 on your resume, 1 can be to a pull request you raised. It doesn't have to be big. It has to be valuable, and the pull request description has to be awesome. Maybe there's like a nice discussion there. Then have 1 for an issue that you raised that was really well discussed and you gave background, you did a bit of research, maybe a GitHub discussion. Like have a variety of different things there. I think that's really important. Don't try and find your biggest pull request. That's something that people are not looking for. They want to see how do you collaborate and add value to the project. Akshat asks, does a DevOps practitioner need to learn web development? Well, you can kind of flip that question around. Does a web dev need to learn about DevOps? The answer is yes, but not in the same depth. So if you're learning DevOps, then focus on DevOps. But it's interesting to have a bit of an understanding of the other area of web dev and so forth. And same for someone else like me, I'm not a DevOps expert, but I do DevOps. But I focus on web dev, but with an understanding and appreciation for DevOps that will help you stand out from the crowd. So the answer is learn a little bit of web dev. Thank you all so much for your questions. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed my answers. I had so much fun going through this. Maybe I should do this once a month and get you to ask questions once a month, and I can make a video on this. I don't know, maybe every other month. Let me know in the comments below what frequency would be really good. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. But I really enjoyed it and I hope to do more of these. I look forward to geeking out. I'll see you in the Eddie Hub Discord, link in the description below.